Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another game theory reaction. And this one is, how deadly are Donkey Kong's punches? I mean, Donkey Kong is a gorilla, so either way, I don't think I'd want to be in the same room as a gorilla or fighting a gorilla or, anything like that. But given that the thumbnail I got for this has the movie Donkey Kong on it, so, which Donkey Kong version are they going with here? Or actually think about it, how close are the two Donkey Kongs? Because I know there was the oh god, I'm having a complete brain fart here. The new Donkey Kong game where you have the little where you have all the transformations and you can pull up chunks of the ground and stuff like that. Because Donkey Kong and stuff like that, obviously punching is a main weapon. I mean, I'm going to guess that given that Donkey Kong is a video game, gorilla, he's going to be, leagues above what an actual gorilla can do. But also, now I'm thinking about it, I don't actually know how strong an actual gorilla's punch would be. Because, I don't think I've ever seen, video or anything of a gorilla, going like this. I've seen them go, down, or, there's always, ripping something apart. But, actually, the punching motion, I'd imagine gorillas would be capable of doing that. Okay, so, I gotta say this. The more I think about the question, the more intrigued I am by it. So, let's actually get into this and see what the answer might actually be. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description. If you haven't seen it for some reason, corner video will lead to my film theory reaction. And yeah, if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because over 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my next big goal is hopefully at 6,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
How deadly is Donkey Kong's punch? It's one of his most iconic moves in Smash Bros. And now he's back in Donkey Kong Bonanza, and he is stronger than ever, destroying anything that gets in his path. But how strong is it really? Today, we're going to find out. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that smashes the environment with science like you smash that subscribe button. Although, not sure my world-smashing brain would put up much of a fight against the world-smashing brawn that is Donkey Kong. He may not have always been known for talking with his fists, mostly just jumping on his enemies like his sworn rival Mario, but ever since his appearance in 1999 Super Smash Bros., DK's Charge Punch has remained a powerful force to be reckoned with. And now, with his triumphant return in Donkey Kong Bonanza, we finally get to use the full power of his fists, destroying the environment like you're a villain in an 80s cartoon. The pure destructive force of DK's fists seems overwhelming, but the question is it? You see, Nintendo has a habit of, let's say, skirting realism for the sake of quote-unquote fun. But you know what?
No, really? I mean, a video game being unrealistic, I shudder at the thought.
I find fun physics, especially the physics of an 800-pound gorilla with weird workplace relationships.
Wait, DK, you can't just snack on enough.
So I figured it was time for me to sit down and do the math for myself to figure out how powerful is DK's Smash. You might think this is going to require us to use one of our favorite formulas on this channel, FMA, force equals mass times acceleration. But actually, we need something a little beefier. See, FMA focuses on an object in constant acceleration. However, we're focusing on a singular punch, which doesn't have a continuous motion. It stops once it makes impact, and the force applied during that impact is what we're after. Luckily, there is a formula for that too, and it looks like this. F equals delta P over delta T. Basically, the change in momentum divided by the change in time. And to figure out that first bit, that change in momentum, we need two things: the mass and the velocity at the time of impact.
Okay, I was literally just about to say, I mean, this is why I've gotten into the habit of letting the video actually continue going on, because I was literally just about to say, wait, shouldn't the mass of DK's arm also be accounted into that? Because the whole thing with with the punch is that it's the force, not only from the punch itself, but of the arm hitting. That's kind of the thing as well. Huh.
That's a lot of small pieces to find, so we'd best make like Donkey Kong and start collecting them. And we gotta start somewhere, so let's start with the mass. In DK64's final boss battle, the MC announces DK's weight as 800 pounds. There is a slight dispute over this on the internet because, according to some people, Donkey Kong Country 2's player guide has his weight set to 450 pounds. But I read all 129 pages of that thing and I couldn't find it anywhere. So 800 pounds or 363 kilograms it is.
I mean, if you look at the designs, they have changed a little bit over time. So maybe he was really pumping iron in the in the years in between.
Nice! First puzzle piece found. Although DK isn't going to get to put all of his weight behind a punch.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we need to do is calculate something called his effective mass, which is the weight of Donkey Kong's body that will actually go into the punch.
Exactly what I said before, the mass of his arm.
It's not just the weight of the arm either. That will heavily limit the amount of force. You want to get as much weight behind you as you can. By rotating your body like boxers do, you can throw significantly more weight behind each blow. Looking at DK's punch specifically, he's using a punch type known as a rear hook, which is a kind of punch that is thrown with your dominant hand from behind in an arcing motion. Interestingly enough, while the rear hook often looks like the strongest punch, it's actually wasting a lot of time, energy, and effective mass compared to just straight punches. But
at the same time, you look at how quickly DK's doing it, so man, if he was just doing regular punches, like, man, how quick could he actually swing?
Nonetheless, that's what DK likes to do, so that's what we have to work with. On average, a professional boxer can get about 14.88% plus or minus 6.74% of their body mass into a good rear hook. Given we're seeing DK punch through literal rocks, or through my face in a game of Smash, I'm gonna go with the higher end and say he maxes out at the 21.62% level, which puts his effective mass at about 172.95 pounds or 78.48 kilograms.
Okay, it's one of those things that I really do wish they kind of go further in, but I'd really like to find out, like how did they even find out about that specifically? Like, how do you calculate and discover that, like, a puncher when, like a boxer when punching, is able to put like 14% or about 14% of his total body weight, or body mass, I should say, into a punch? Like, how do you actually calculate that? Or was it just a lot of times of, weighing like a boxer's weight and then having them punch a sensor and seeing how much they could actually get into it? Was there actual math involved, or was it just a lot of trial and error?
Boom! There's another piece. And it's not a small one either. That's like having a whole Hampshire sheep thrown at your face. For reference, Mike Tyson at the height of his career weighed 220 pounds or 100 kilograms, meaning his rear hook at the top end could have carried an effective mass of 47.56 pounds or 21.62 kilograms. Just over a quarter of DK's power. And I don't think any of us really fancy getting a hit from Tyson, let alone DK. Well, unless you're Jake Paul, I suppose. Now it's time to calculate the velocity of DK's fists. Going frame by frame, DK takes about 13 frames to throw a punch from its furthest back point to its target. With the game usually running at 60 frames per second, that means it happens in 0.22 seconds. But that's just the time it takes for the punch to impact. The velocity requires us to also calculate how far the punch is actually traveling, and that requires some other stats about DK.
Woo! Pixel measurements, here we go! Yeah, because again, because I know DK's, huge, he's a gorilla. And again, probably much bigger than your average gorilla or real life gorilla on top of that.
Namely, his wingspan. You see, when DK gets ready to punch, he pulls all the way back, even shifting his weight before launching forward, bringing his fist across his full wingspan. Now, when it comes to humans, wingspan is pretty easy to figure out. Typically, a human's wingspan is the same length as their height. Not always, mind you. My wingspan is actually 3 inches shorter, but nevertheless, it's a pretty good baseline. Gorillas, on the other hand, have much larger wingspans, usually averaging a 35% increase compared to their height. Of course,
so what we're learning from this is that Tom is more closely related to gorillas than humans. Got it.
I knew that wouldn't necessarily apply to Donkey Kong. So I pulled out the pixel measurements to test Banaza specifically. And what I found is that DK is well above the average. His wingspan is a whopping 85% larger than his height. That is an insane reach. He'd definitely be winning against Tyson now. Or maybe he'd like to take on LeBron James instead. But
all I can imagine now is just, hand on head. What it's like, you can't reach me, you can't reach me, you can't reach me.
85% of what, exactly? We're still lacking the actual measurements. Well, this is where I ran into some issues. DK's size is, let's call it, inconsistent across games. Comparing him to our officially confirmed canon Mario height of 1.55 meters, or 5 foot and 1 inch, in Mario Kart, DK's about 7 foot 2. In Mario Party, he's around 8 foot. In Mario vs. Donkey Kong, he's 8 foot 6, and in Smash Ultimate, he's 10 foot 2.
Just like Wario, no.
However, it is widely agreed upon that DK's height while fully standing up is actually 7 foot 10. In Banaza, we see him crouch next to characters like Cranky Kong, maintaining the same height difference that we've seen from him in other parts of the franchise. So he's not taller or shorter in this game either. So we're gonna stick with this for our measurements. This puts DK's wingspan at 14 foot and 3 inches, and his punch velocity at about 44 miles per hour, or about 19.74 meters per second.
Yeah, that is... if that's not deadly, then I don't know what is. I mean, I'll actually, so big fist. All that force is kind of spread out across a relatively large area. So... yeah, so I could see it as... I mean, maybe... I mean, granted, you still, if you were punched in the head, you know, like, that's still a lot of brain damage. But I'm just gonna stay on the safe side and assume that it is deadly.
That gives us the first of the many parts of our equation. Delta P equals 78.48 kilograms multiplied by 19.74 meters per second, which equals 1,549 kilogram meters per second. Now, it's just the change in time we need. And fortunately, this one's a little easier to figure out. Going frame by frame once again, we can see that while the impact happens in a single frame, it takes 7 frames for his arm and fist to fully decelerate, which means DK is going from 19.74 meters per second to 0 meters per second in just 0.12 seconds. So by plugging that into our formula, we find that DK's punch has an impact force of 12,908 newtons, or about 2,902 pounds of force. For reference, the human skull is estimated to be able to withstand up to 6,227 newtons before completely shattering. DK would not only break a person's skull, he would shatter it twice over.
Okay, so I was correct on my estimate there, thinking that yeah, it would be deadly. So yeah, best if you're fighting DK, best thing to do is to do it from range with something of a very large caliber, preferably battleship grade.
No wonder poor Ness goes flying off the stage after DK charges up. If anything, I'm surprised Smash characters aren't throwing themselves off the stage. The fall is probably safer. And things only get more deadly when you consider the main gimmick of this game, the Banaza transformations. When Pauline sings certain songs, DK transforms into one of 5 different animals to give him new abilities. Sometimes it's an elephant who sucks up dirt with its trunk, sometimes it's an ostrich that can glide, a zebra that can run fast, or a snake that can double jump.
Oh god, man, I hadn't seen that. Like, man, the fact that they actually went and gave him hoofs on all 4 limbs, but didn't change the way they bent or articulated for the zebra one, that's weird.
And then there's the first and arguably simplest transformation, Kong Banaza.
Big gorilla.
Yeah, he may just look like a bigger gorilla, but the whole point of this power-up is he becomes so much stronger, able to break things he can't normally. So, thanks to this huge boost in size and strength, what kind of forces are we now playing with? Well,
a lot more, I'd imagine.
Here, I was able to calculate that DK's height increases by around 52% instantly. But once again, this is where DK's size inconsistencies come into play. See, while his height increases by 52%, his wingspan actually increases by 93%, leading to his wingspan being a gargantuan 27 feet and 7 inches, or 8.4 meters.
But I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here and say that the biggest missing piece we have for this is the fact that, you know, we've never been given explicitly how much he weighs in this form.
However, despite this new massive distance his punches now have to travel, his increased strength has somehow allowed him to keep his 44-mile-per-hour speeds. The only challenging part now is figuring out what his new mass is, because it's clear that different parts of him grow different amounts. And without the game files being readily available for me to shove into Blender like I usually do, it's not going to be that simple to figure out. Instead, I took a bunch of extra measurements from DK, his head, his chest, his waist, his feet, and from that, the best estimation I could calculate was that he's grown on average around 72% in total when accounting for the various differences. But while his size may have gone up by that amount, that's not going to be the same for his mass because of something we've talked about a few times on this channel, the square cube law. What this basically boils down to is that even though his size has increased by 1.72 times, his weight would actually increase by 1.72 to the third time. So if he weighed 800 pounds before, in Kong Bonanza form, he's going to weigh 4,070 pounds, which...
That's a big monkey.
Sounds like a lot, but it's actually just the same weight as a giraffe. Heavy, but not crazy heavy. But
I mean, for a gorilla, that is very heavy.
now we got to convert that into effective mass like before, which is only 21.62%, giving us an effective punching mass of 880 pounds or 399 kilograms. Yeah, DK is going from punching with the weight of a sheep to the weight of his former self. But with that, we have the last piece of our puzzle, and plugging them all into our impact equation, we can see that in Kong Bonanza form, DK's punch has an impact force of 65,403 newtons, or 14,702 pounds of force.
Big monkey, very big destruction. You know, honestly, like, I'm just going to step back here. When I first clicked on this video, I didn't know that they were actually going to be going over, you know, like the biomechanics and stuff like that when it comes to trying to figure out how strong Kong's punch could be. I initially thought they were going to do a thing where, like, oh, they took, like, the hardest substance that he actually punches, like the rock, and try to figure out, like, how strong it would, what's the resistance of, like, explosive force they can resist before they start crumbling and stuff like that. Honestly, I'm liking this a lot more just for like the math and trying to, like, see how, like, exponential some of these increases are. Again, it's like, it's the main reason I like watching game theories, is because, like, I love seeing the math do its math stuff and just seeing how, like, out of control it can get sometimes.
I don't even know how I'm going to begin to quantify that, but you know me, I'm damn sure gonna try. See, other than the transformations, there is one other mechanic that makes DK Banaza stand out. Its destructible environment. Donkey Kong can smash almost anything and everything in this game, so I figured let's take a look at some of the terrain he can destroy to see whether it gives us any kind of understanding of the numbers we've just calculated.
I'm saying this. I did not pre-watch this video. How did I know exactly what to talk about then? That was, like, freaky.
There are several types of terrain in this game, like sand, snow, mud, but the one that caught my attention was the rock. Specifically, these barrier rocks that block off certain areas. They are some of the more challenging rocks to smash, but shocker, barrier isn't a real type of rock. Don't worry though, with enough digging, or punching, it shouldn't be too hard to figure out what kind of rock this is. Let's start with the location. Inga Isle, where the game takes place, seems to be a volcanic island, as evidenced by the large mountain in the center,
like volcanic rock or something.
In the middle of the ocean, and, you know, there are lava levels. That makes these hardened walls that cut through the rest of the stone and dirt volcanic dikes, which is hardened magma flow that falls vertically into some kind of crevice. Dikes are most commonly made of basalt or granite, because both are made from cooling magma or lava, with basalt being made from lava rapidly cooling against the air, and granite being caused by slowly cooling magma. However, unlike human bones whose breaking points are regularly measured in pure newtons of force or pounds of force, these rocks have breaking points or compression strength measured in PSI, or pounds per square inch, which is basically the pounds of force divided by the area that force is applied, i.e. the size of Donkey Kong's fists. Granite's PSI roughly tops out at around 36,000 PSI, while basalt tops out at around 58,000 PSI.
Okay, so I'm wondering, Is there a way to convert the, like, newtons to PSI? I mean, there'd have to be. I don't see why there wouldn't be.
So does DK have what it takes to break these rocks? Well, once again, we need to whip out the pixel measurements and see. From comparing his fists to his body, we can see that in his base form, his fists measure a whopping 19.5 inches or 50 centimeters wide.
Okay, what was I talking about before? About, huge amount of force but spread over a large area? This is it, okay.
And about 15.5 inches or 40 centimeters long, meaning his final fist area would be roughly 2 square feet or 0.2 square meters. That is huge, even for a gorilla. But his fists have always been unusually massive, so I shouldn't be surprised at this point.
Yeah.
And Kong Bonanza's fists are even more massive, measuring in at 42 inches or 107.5 centimeters wide and 25 inches or 63.5 centimeters long, making his total fist area 7.3 square feet or 0.68 square meters. So let's plug those in and see what we get. For regular DK, this means 2,900 pounds of force divided by 2 square feet, equaling 10 psi. And for Kong Bonanza, that's 14,702 pounds of force divided by 7.3 square feet, which equals nearly 14 psi. Huh, that's not all that much, and certainly nowhere near the 58,000 psi that he would need to smash the rocks we're seeing in the game.
Okay, so I was partially right there, except I was not right about it being applied to human bone. I was more, it should have been applied to just rock itself. But I mean, that does make sense. It's generally assumed that human bone is not as strong as rock, so how are they going to get around to this one, eh?
If his hands weren't quite so large and gorilla-like and instead were more like a precision jackhammer, then he'd probably be in a good spot. But size does matter, because it means he's distributing all of that force over too large an area. It's still gonna be deadly for a normal human, but against some of Kong's other big threats, it's not gonna do him much good. Except, as we can all see, DK is able to break these rocks, even in base form, so clearly I'm the problem here.
It's me, I'm the problem, it's me.
Somewhere in my calculations there must be a mistake. Some variable that has thrown everything else out of alignment. But I'm not going to be defeated by math. I will figure out how deadly DK's punch truly is. It's time for my own Bonanza transformation. Sing the theorist song.
Okay, so I mean, I guess like what you could potentially do is just like put in the PSI that you need and kind of like reverse engineer to see like what changes or what you'd have to change about DK for it to work. Or alternatively, just, like, give him smaller hands. That'd be, now I'm thinking about that'd be really funny looking.
Dupes. Okay, let's do this. If we know that base DK needs to be punching with a PSI of 58,000, we should be able to use that to work backwards. DK's hand size isn't changing. Those pixel measurements are pretty hard to deny. Instead, it's the pounds of force we need to change. So we just need to multiply 58,000 PSI by DK's 2 square feet fist area, which gives us 17,530,500 pounds of force. Or 77,977,103 newtons.
Okay, so I'm going to go on another assumption here. I'm going to assume that the thing that's going to have to be changed about DK is the speed of his punch. Because if you're going to stick with him still being an 800-pound gorilla, that's the only variable that could really be changed at this point, is like how quickly it's moving. Which I have, at this point, I'm going to guess, just because of what I said before about, the math going, crazy when it starts going. I'm going to assume that by the end of this, DK is going to be punching at a fraction of the speed of light.
Which, for reference, would be like 4/5 of the Eiffel Tower crushing you. But we can go a step further, because even though we've technically figured out the total force, we did a bunch of calculations to get to this point. So I want to know exactly what else has now changed. If that force is delta P divided by delta T, then one of those is the culprit. And it's unlikely to be the time taken for the collision, as that happened in 0.12 seconds, which is accurate for most collisions, so it has to be our delta P.
I mean, you could potentially just have it be, you know, stop in 0 seconds where it's instant.
Change in momentum. So by reversing this equation and multiplying 77,977,103 newtons by
the big numbers.
we get a change in momentum of 9,357,252 kilogram meters per second. But that came from DK's effective mass times velocity, and we know the mass is right based on the canon information, which means the velocity must be where the problem
What
is.
did I
So
say?
by reversing
What did
the
I say?
equation one more time, we find out that DK's fist is traveling at the insane velocity of, drumroll please, 119,224.7 meters per second, or 266,636 miles per hour. That's just insane! Maybe that's why the game's frame rate was so janky. I guess even with all the upgrades for the Switch 2, it still isn't fast enough to keep up. Again, for reference, to escape Earth's gravity, the Apollo 10 spaceship had to reach speeds of only 25,000 miles per hour. Heck, the speed of sound is only 343 meters per second, and Kong is breaking that 347 times over with every single punch.
Okay, wait a second. Just remind me here. What's the speed of light in meters per second? Okay, yeah, never mind. I like how Google just has it as one light. Okay, yeah, so I guess he is doing it technically a fraction of the speed of light, just a very, very small fraction.
If he punches one enemy, the entire army might fall due to the sonic booms. And with the energy behind it, he's not just destroying rocks or obliterating enemies, he's going to be able to melt steel beams. Although DK would also likely be collapsing like everyone and everything around it, because with every action comes an equal and opposite reaction. DK is also decelerating, and his hand is also experiencing those 77,977,103 newtons.
Man, in a new DK challenge run, can you beat the game with only 2 punches? Because each punch literally disintegrates your arm.
Toughest single bone in the body, the femur, can only withstand 4,000 newtons of force. The fingers are way less at around 1,485 newtons. Now, gorilla bones are significantly denser than human bones, around 3 times more. But given we're dealing with nearly 78 million newtons, it's just not going to be anywhere near enough. Even with his 72% increase in size and strength in Kong Bonanza mode, his hands won't just be broken, they'd be turned into a furry pulp. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. World premiere.
What did I say before about just enjoying, like, seeing how, like, quickly the math can just get out of hand, like, completely when watching, like, game theory? Again, it's one of the reasons I've stuck with the show through its ups and downs so much over the years. It's just, because, like, who says video games have to be realistic? Because, like, I know, you know, they make a big deal about stuff being realistic when it does happen, but at the same time, when you have stuff that isn't realistic like this, like, it just makes things so much more fun. But yeah, that is definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.